never my intention to cause hurt to anyone. I was engaged in an interview. I didn't issue a statement. I was going back and forth, and I was trying to point out, and everything I said is cited in the Smithwick report. And and I stand over that. I mean, the Smithwick report makes it very, very clear that there were warnings to these two police officers of the danger of travelling. I think up to 10 times in 1 month. I'm not sure of my actual figures at this point, but I mean, it was clear that there was a risk at that time, and in trying to rationalise that, because I worked with the Smithwick report, I met them quite a few times and cooperated with them, and I do think there's a contradiction in a report which says there is no direct evidence of collusion, and there is no direct evidence of collusion, and then go on to say, using a legal precept, that on the balance of probabilities there was collusion, without identifying what form that took, or so read those parts of the report that deal with that, and you'll see that my remarks were accurate. But in terms of causing hurt, that was never my intention to cause hurt. I don't need reminders from anyone that there are victims, and the nonsense of suggesting that I was blaming these men for their own deaths, I mean, that was never in question, that the IRA killed them and that it was a brutal killing, but it was in the middle of a war. And I also have commended these officers, these RUC officers, Buchanan and Breen, as men who were doing their duty as they saw it, in the same way as my belief the IRA volunteers were doing their duty as they saw it. But you see, we keep refighting the war, and some people fight and refight the war at the behest of their editors, and some people fight it from the safety of the plinth or the seats in the Oireachtas. The war's over. We should be fighting for peace. We should be fighting to develop peace, and that means dealing with the past and doing that in as therapeutic a way as possible, in a victim-centred way, but in a way which prevents the past from being an obstacle to building a proper future. And that's another lesson from South Africa. They had to go through this process of binding the wounds of the nation. They had to go through all the hard issues of people facing up to what had occurred and then moving forward.
Gerry, were the words laissez-faire wrong? Were they a mistake?
I'm not going to be engaged now in a thesaurus discussion. I've made it clear it was never my intention to cause offence or to hurt the families.
But you said it was your intention to quote the report. The report never said laissez-faire.
But the report did point up, which is my main contention, that these officers were at very, very, very considerable risk, and that's what I was pointing out, and I think it's entirely legitimate to do that. And I think when I give a opinion, obviously it's subject to scrutiny and will be seized upon by others, but I would, if I may say so, say that those others who criticise me for offending families are doing so themselves by the way they respond to these.
Gerry, did the IRA have a duty? You said that they're carrying out their duty that day. Did they have a duty to gun down Harry Breen as he was waving a white hanky and trying
I'm not going with respect deal with that. The war's over. That I made it clear that these officers were courageous officers doing their duty.
It's a fair question, Gerry. He was waving
Sorry, I don't need to be.
hanky.
Excuse me.
Was it brave of the IRA? You said the IRA men were brave. Was it brave of them to gun him down?
Well. First of all, I'm not going to start once again. Here we go again. Well, let's refight.
Mr. Adams, it is
it's
legitimate for the national media to ask you questions when you make controversial statements. It's legitimate for the national media to come back at you with legitimate questions about your intentions, about what you say, and it's in that regard your comments have caused hurt to not only victims of the IRA but also to people in the wider Republican movement. It's therefore legitimate for the national media to ask you, do you regret your statement, do you apologise for your statement, and therefore for Michael to ask the question that he's asked.
I didn't use the word, I didn't say that this question wasn't legitimate. So please don't lecture me on all of these matters. I don't think you're in any position to lecture anyone in anything. I have made my statement. I have set out my position, but you might not like it, and you know, the concern that you show is very, very touching. But I live in a real world, and my job in the real world is to ensure that conflict never happens again in this island, that we move forward in all of the commitments that we have made in terms of the peace process, and that we should deal with the past in a way which is rational, in a way which is victim-centred, and that we have proposed in Sinn Féin a process for doing that which removes it from a partisan facility by governments or by others, and invites in an international agency to deal with these matters. And I would commend that position to you.
Gerry, your spokesman went as far as you won't do today, the night when he said they had a duty to kill those officers. So was he correct in what he said?
Again, I'm not going to, I've said my piece in this, and you can continue to pull on the thread if you wish. If you really are concerned about the families, as some of your colleagues have suggested, then it doesn't do anybody any good to be going through.
Well, there's a wider issue in that it's about the political process here, and what people who may vote for Sinn Féin, what their impressions of the party may be.
Well,
so on that level, it's a legitimate question. So do you back up your spokesman when he said they had a duty to kill?
Again, you're talking about the legitimacy of the question. Please respect the legitimacy of the answer. I would invite you. I have answered the question. I might not have given you an answer you'd like, but I have answered the question. I would invite you to stand on whatever ticket you want at the next election and test your ideas with the electorate in this state. I did that. I've received the mandate, and people know what they're voting for.
What about testing honesty and truth, Gerry?
Well, I'm not going to even rise to that silliness.
Will you withdraw the comments that have caused so much hurt?
Excuse me, I don't even accept. I will have to refuse your question, first of all. Who was hurt? Micheál Martin?
No, the families.
The family said
Well,
they
I've already said, we can go over this and over this and over this. I've already said it was not my intention to cause any further hurt to the families. I don't need reminded that there are two families at the heart of this issue, and I made that clear, by the way. To go back and listen to the newstalk interview. So, I've made my position clear. I stand over the accuracy of the fact that these officers were at risk, and I draw that from the report. I didn't make it up. It's in the report. I also think that the recommendations of the report should be acted upon. They're so common sense, and one would imagine they should have been acted upon before.
Do you at least regret the timing of the statements, given that they came so few hours?
That's all the questions I want to deal with. By the way, I didn't make a statement. I answered a question from one of your colleagues. And that's what I did in the course of the interview.
Mr. Adams, if there's an impact on Sinn Féin's support in the Republic on foot of your statement, what do you say to that? I mean, because clearly your poll numbers are up significantly on the general election.
Well, I have great confidence in the Irish people. I have great confidence in the Irish people to discern these issues and to make up of their own minds on all of these issues. Irish people are not fickle or stupid.